There are lots of applications that come preloaded in Mac OS X Yosemite. In this chapter, I want to focus on Safari, which is pretty essential for everyday use. Safari is the web browser that comes with OS X. A web browser, of course, is the application that you use when you do any work on the web. There are other browsers you could use like Chrome and Firefox, but Safari is the one that comes bundled with Yosemite, so it's worth getting familiar with. Let's start with the most basic and essential operations in Safari. So of course, I'm going to go ahead and open Safari. And by default, if you've never changed any of the settings, when you open Safari, you're probably looking at this top sites layout. This is just a list of popular websites that you might want to go to. If you click on one of these, it'll go to that page. But of course, you're probably going to want to navigate to a specific website that you want to visit. And to do that, we're going to go to the address bar. And one thing you may notice about Safari, especially if you've used previous versions of Safari, is that it's a very smooth and minimal design. There's not a lot of stuff on the screen here. The address bar up here at the top is very small and there's not much more in the interface. So if I want to go to a website, I just click in this address bar and I can type in the address. So in this case, I'm going to go to a fairly popular website, Amazon.com. So I could type in www.amazon.com, but in most cases, you don't have to type in that www. You can just type in the Amazon.com part, press return, and it'll load up that website. Now, this is the address bar, but it's also a search bar. You can perform a search to find a website if you don't know the address. So for example, I'm going to click on this, and instead of typing an address, I'm going to type in some keywords for a site that I'm looking for. I'll type in 2 Trees Olive Oil. I'm looking for the webpage of an olive oil bottling company. And since this is not an address, it defaults to doing a Google search. And it also shows me some results from my history. I've actually visited this site before, so it lists it here in my history. I'm going to disregard that for now. I'm just going to type in the search terms and press return, and it gives me a Google search result. And here's the one I'm looking for. I can click on it and load that page. So the address bar is pretty essential. We also have a couple buttons here for back and forward. So if I want to go back to the previous page I was on, I can just hit the back button. And if I want to go forward again, I just hit forward. And we can open up the sidebar, which is hidden by default. If I click on this button, there's that sidebar. We'll deal more with the sidebar as we go through the rest of this chapter, especially when we talk about favorites and bookmarks. But if I close that, it'll go away. Now, while we're talking about favorites, there is another interface item that could be here if you want it to be. If I go to the View menu, I can do Show Favorites bar. And this is a list of bookmarks or favorite websites that you might want to visit. Safari comes with some already built in, and you can add your own. And again, we're going to talk about that in the movie dedicated to favorites. But also in the favorites bar is a button that will get us back to that top sites view. And that'll stay here until we either type in the address for another website or a search term, or just hit the back button. And if I want the favorites bar gone, I can just go to the View menu and hide the favorites bar. And the last thing I want to mention is that Safari works really well as a full screen app. All you need to do is hit the green button, as we've seen before, and it'll go into full screen. And this is a really nice way to browse through a web page. I can scroll through here, I can click on links, and I can just sort of navigate around without being distracted by other windows or applications that might be open. And of course, when I want to leave full screen mode, I move my mouse up to the top of the screen, my menus pop up, I hit the green button, and I'm back to normal. So we're off to a good start with Safari. There is lots more we can do with Safari, and that's why we've got an entire chapter dedicated to it. But what we've seen here in this movie should be all you need for normal, everyday web browsing. The rest of this chapter will get into more specific features.